From the National Newsroom of the Canadian Press, I'm Rob Westgate. Montreal Canadiens legend Ken Dryden has died after a battle with cancer. The legendary Habs backstop won 6 Stanley Cup championships with the Bleu Blanc et Rouge back in the 1970s. He was also part of that team that took on and defeated a fearsome Soviet club at the 1972 Summit Series. Dryden retired young, then became a lawyer, author, NHL executive, and federal cabinet minister. Prime Minister Mark Carney taking to social media this morning to share his condolences, saying, quote, "Few Canadians have given more or stood taller for our country." Dryden was 78. U.S. President Donald Trump's threats to deploy the National Guard in Democratic strongholds against the wishes of local leadership is causing alarm among some experts and veterans.
National Guard troops have been stationed around Washington for weeks, but U.S. President Donald Trump is upping the ante by threatening to send them to Chicago and Baltimore, where Democrat governors have said they're not needed. University of Chicago law professor Aziz Huq says it's extremely rare for the National Guard to be called in over the opposition of a governor, and generally, troops are prohibited from domestic policing. Lelena Brandt is part of a group, Remember Your Oath, made up of veterans alarmed by what they're seeing.
We're war fighters, not crime fighters, and we're really concerned.
Kelly Malone, The Canadian Press, Washington.
The Musqueam Indian Band and the city of Richmond, BC, say they're each going to appeal a recent BC Supreme Court decision finding a First Nation government holds Aboriginal title for an area of Metro Vancouver. Now, the landmark court ruling granted the Cowichan tribe's Aboriginal ownership of more than 7 square kilometers of land, as well as fishing rights along the southern arm of the Fraser River. The court declared Crown and city titles defective and invalid, stripping both of any claim to the land. While the Cowichan tribes did not seek to overturn private property titles, the judge found the government had unfairly violated their rights when those titles were first handed out. The leader of the Assembly of First Nations is calling for more investments into First Nations-led policing initiatives, as well as mental health and addiction support, following a Thursday morning mass stabbing on the Hollow Water First Nation in Manitoba. National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Nepenak says the attack is an example of how policing in First Nations is failing and that it must be recognized as an essential service. Police say 26-year-old Tyrone Samard is accused of killing his sister and attacking several others before he himself was killed in a collision with an RCMP vehicle. And finally, the cast of boxing biopic Christie reflected on bringing the renowned fighter's vulnerable story to life while celebrating its premiere at the Toronto International Film Festival. Star Sydney Sweeny, who was joined on the red carpet by the real Christy Salters and her dog, says it's been transformative.
I don't think that I'll ever have an experience like this ever again. Like, as an actor, but also just as a woman and a human being, like being able to share your story with people is so inspiring, and I'm incredibly honored.
Christie is expected in theaters on November 7th. This is the Canadian Press. In sports, the hockey world is mourning the loss of Ken Dryden, the Hall of Fame goaltender whose long resume in and out of hockey included 6 Stanley Cup victories and helping backstop Canada's generation-defining victory at the 1972 Summit Series. Dryden died Friday at the age of 78 after a battle with cancer. Over to the CFL, Dustin Crum shook off a subpar first half and led the Ottawa Redblacks to a 34-33 comeback win over the BC Lions. Crum, making his 4th start, finished 24 for 32 for 301 yards and 1 touchdown, adding 69 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Over to the Diamond now, where Kevin Gausman won for the first time in a month as the Toronto Blue Jays beat the New York Yankees 7-1, reopening a 4-game American League East lead over the Bronx Bombers. And finally, Italy's Yannick Sinner has eliminated Canadian Felix Auger-Aliassime at the U.S. Open in the Friday night semifinals. From the Canadian Press, I'm Rob Westgate.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to follow and subscribe. For more of today's top stories, visit thecanadianpressnews.ca.